As somebody who is really into the horror genre, I often think about what is my favourite horror movies of all time. I have seen thousands of movies in general. I looked into an old video that I made when I was about 18, so 8 years ago, doing my top 10 horror movies. Now this didn't get posted anywhere, I just happened to find it on an old camcorder, and it was funny to watch back on it really, because my opinion has drastically changed. On that video, I don't have it anymore. That top 10 list, it consisted of, you know, the It miniseries and Psycho and Frankenstein from 1931. And yes, I do love them movies, like, a lot. It's funny to know, like, 8 years on, how different my list is. Opinions do change, you know, as I get older. I imagine that this list won't stay true forever, but I think it would be interesting to talk about my current favourites. I think I should also just mention that these are my top 10 movies. If you don't like any of the movies that are on there, that's fine, because, you know, you're entitled to your own opinion. This is my opinion. I would also like to see your top 10 list in the comments, and we can have a little discussion about movies. That would be really interesting. Coming in at number 10 on my top 10 horror movies of all time, we have the original Hellraiser. Just to do a quick synopsis of each movie. When Frank Cotton solves the mystery of a Chinese puzzle box, he enters the world of the Cenobites, a world where these cruel sadists thrive on pain. Later, restored to life by the blood of his brother Larry, Frank rises to feed on the life force of others. When Larry's wife agrees to provide the sacrifices he needs, the spills, chills and thrills are just beginning. I did not get round to watching this movie until I was about 22, and I fell in love with this franchise. There's quite a lot in the franchise that I do like. However, the first one is my favourite. Stars Doug Bradley as the main Cenobite, Pinhead. I met Doug Bradley as well last year, and he is honestly one of the most lovely people I have ever met. As you can see, I have my Doug Bradley signed Pinhead pop figure as well. Absolutely love that. It goes right in the middle of my shelf. And yeah, the film itself is directed by Clive Barker. If you don't know who that is, he wrote The Hellbound Heart, which is what this film is based on. So it's cool that he directed the movie as well. I love the book. The movie is really interesting. I love the whole story of it, really. My partner took me to the cinema last year to see it as well, and it was really cool seeing it in 4K. It's one of them grimy sort of movies. It came out in 1987. If you haven't already seen Hellraiser, I highly suggest you do. It is phenomenal. Also in my top 10 list, we have Jennifer's Body. Also wearing my Jennifer's Body t-shirt today. Don't know if you can see, but yes, this has been a movie that has been in my top 10 list for 15 years. I have always had a soft spot for Jennifer's Body. It has that, like, I mean, it's totally not the same, but it has that same aesthetic as like Twilight, which is probably a really bad comparison, but I just love it. I mean, it came out in like 2009. It's got that really edgy late 2000s vibe to it. Very teenage horror, I find. If you don't know what Jennifer's Body is about, I'm just going to be reading the back of the DVD. So it says, sexy temptress Megan Fox is hotter than hell as Jennifer, a gorgeous, seductive cheerleader who takes evil to a whole new level after she's possessed by a sinister demon. Steamy action and gore galore ensure that the male student body succumbs to Jennifer's insatiable appetite for human flesh. Now it's up to her best friend to stop Jennifer's reign of terror before it's too late. Again, I can say I have probably a really strong bias because I've just loved this movie ever since it came out. Not many people talk about it very often, and I believe it deserves a lot more love. The promotion for this movie was done horribly wrong and it didn't get the love that it deserved, but it's always been something that really appealed to me and I just love it. Up next we have, okay, so I don't want to cheat because but it'll make sense. I have a box set for the 3 Evil Dead movies. Now, my opinion on what is my favourite one changes all the time. I love all 3 of them for different things, and I feel like every time I look to do one of these lists, it's either 1, 2 or 3. I can never decide which one I like. At the moment, I think my favourite is Evil Dead 1. That's only because I rewatched it recently. So, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, the incompetent mid-20s employee of S-Mart, whose trip away with his friends and girlfriend Linda turns into a deadite disaster when they stumble across a Book of the Dead. Unleashing evil spirits which possess the living, Ash's journey takes him from zero to hero when he faces evil spirits, possessed girlfriends and deadite incarnations of himself through the battle to the ends of the earth and back. Yeah, as I was saying, I think my favourite one at the moment is 1. However, like I say, it just depends on the day which one is my favourite. I think they're all at a good standard. The practical effects, the stop motion, the gore, the comedy, it's everything that I love in a horror movie, and it is absolutely phenomenal. I love the TV show. It still has that same vibe to it. Bruce Campbell is amazing in these movies, and if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you go and watch it. Next up on my list, we have Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. I am very hit or miss with Jordan Peele movies. However, he intrigues me enough to go and see whatever movie he has done next. Now, I hadn't seen this. The first movie by Jordan Peele that I watched was Us in the cinema, and I didn't like it. However, I rewatched it, loved it, went to see Nope in the cinema. Didn't like that, but I think I've mentioned it in another video, I am willing to give it another shot, just because I feel like my opinion would change on it. There was a lot of bits that I did like in it, and I was reluctant to watch Get Out because I had watched Us and Nope and didn't like them. However, my partner got me to watch this and I was blown away. It instantly became in my top 10 of all time. It is fantastic. If you don't know what Get Out is about, when Chris, a young African-American man, visits his white girlfriend's family estate, he becomes ensnared in the more sinister real reason for the invitation. At first, Chris reads the family's overly accommodating behaviour as nervous attempts to deal with their daughter's interracial relationship. But as the weekend progresses, a series of increasingly disturbing discoveries lead him to the truth that he could never have imagined. Yes, Get Out was incredible. The cast is amazing, and do you know what? It ended the way I would want it to. The way that from start to finish, the way it takes you is just, I love the storytelling in this movie. I highly recommend this film if you haven't seen it, and yes, that would be my next one in my top 10. Getting down to the middle of the list here. Up next we have John Carpenter's The Thing. I have always loved this film ever since I was young. Directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell. The description of The Thing is, in the winter of 1982, a 12-man research team at a remote Antarctic research station discovers an alien buried in the snow for over 100,000 years. Soon unfrozen, the form-changing alien wreaks havoc, creates terror, and becomes one of them. The practical effects in this movie are outstanding. I absolutely adore the practical effects in this movie. It is one of the best uses of practical effects ever, and it is absolutely phenomenal. The story is great. It really makes you paranoid about who is the thing and who isn't, and to be honest, you really don't know for the most part, and it is amazing. I do also really like the 2011 The Thing as well, the prequel, and the only thing that let it down for me is that it uses CGI over practical effects. You can never go wrong with practical effects as well when you've got a movie as good as this. It's amazing. Middle of the list we have Child's Play 1988. I love this film. I've loved this movie since I was very young as well. Directed by Tom Holland, not Spider-Man. It stars Brad Dourif as Chucky, Alex Vincent as Andy Barclay. The chills come thick and fast as voodoo and terror meet within an innocent looking doll inhabited by the soul of a serial killer who isn't ready to die. After 6-year-old Andy Barclay's babysitter is violently pushed out of a window to her death, nobody believes him when he says that Chucky, his new birthday doll, did it, until things start going terribly wrong, and when an ensuing rampage of gruesome murders led a detective, played by Chris Sarandon, back to the same toy, he discovers that the real terror has just begun. The deranged doll has plans to transfer his evil spirit into a living human being. For a movie that came out in 1988, it has been done incredibly well to have this doll moving and walking and talking and doing whatever, and the change from looking like a normal child doll to this evil, angry character, it is amazing. I have always loved this film. It's campy and it's cheesy and it's gory, and again, it's something that I just love everything about. And if you haven't watched it, highly suggest you do. I met Brad Dourif at For the Love of Horror last year, and he was also one of the most nicest people I've ever met. As you can see, I have my Chucky pop figure signed, and yeah, it's amazing. At number 4, we have The Black Phone. It feels weird putting a very recent movie in my top 10 of all time. I have seen this many, many times since its release, and I absolutely adore everything about it. It has everything I love in a movie. Also, the movie came out in 2022. It stars Ethan Hawke as the Grabber, a malicious child abductor who kidnaps our main character, Finney, played by Mason Thames. He gets locked in a soundproof basement, and on one of the walls is a disconnected black phone. Occasionally, Finney starts to hear this ring, and when he answers, it is the Grabber's previous victims trying to help him escape. It's really well executed, and it's a film adaptation of the short story written by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. Really well done. I saw this in cinema. I was blown away. It was everything I loved. Instantly became in my top 10. I got this the first day of release on DVD, and I have watched it many times since, and my opinion has not changed on this. I just adore everything about it. I love Ethan Hawke. He is really good in this, and I have heard that there is a Black Phone 2 in the works, and that really excites me. So yes, if you haven't seen this one yet, because it came out 2 years ago, I highly recommend this movie. Down to our last 3. So depending on who you talk to, you'll find that some people don't consider this a horror movie. I watched this for the first time when I was 9 years old, and it terrified me to my core, and that is Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. I became obsessed with this movie. I watched it when I was 9 because I thought it was The Labyrinth, so when I found it on the shelf, my mum just bought it for me, but no, it was completely different. It wasn't that film at all. I love this movie. I've watched it hundreds of times. It was one of the first movies I got my partner to watch with me because he had never heard of it. Guillermo del Toro is one of my all-time favourite directors. Pan's Labyrinth unfolds through the eyes of Ophelia, a young girl uprooted to a remote military outpost commanded by her new stepfather. Powerless and lonely in a place of great danger, Ophelia lives out her own dark fable as she confronts monsters both otherworldly and human after she discovers a neglected labyrinth behind the family home. When she meets Pan, a fantastical creature who challenges her with 3 tasks which he claims will reveal her true identity. So many good things in this movie. Again, like I was saying, people don't consider this a horror movie, they consider it like a dark fantasy. Some of the scenes in this movie absolutely horrified me. You've got Pan, played by Doug Jones, who is one of my favourite people ever. Coming in our second place, these 2 movies, they are so close between the second and first place. I love both these movies equally, to be honest. But at number 2, we have John Carpenter's Halloween. So when people ask me, what do you think is the most perfect horror movie? Every single time that gets asked, this is the movie that pops in my head first. So 15 years ago, a character called Michael Myers brutally massacred his sister. Now, after escaping a mental hospital, he's back to relive his grisly crime again and again and again. I love the slow pacedness of this movie. The main character, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is incredible. I love the town. I love Michael Myers. Yeah, how slow paced this is, and the angles that they use for when Myers is creeping around places, and it's so simple that what I think makes it so perfect. The music to it is just iconic, and like with Brad Dourif and Doug Bradley, I have met Nick Castle, who plays the original Michael Myers, and I got that signed. He was lovely as well, and yes, I adore the first one. Now granted, it's one of them franchises that I don't particularly care much for. However, the first one will always be one of my all-time favourite movies. A movie that I was allowed to watch, again, when I was about 5 years old. It was probably one of the first horror movies that I ever seen, and that is Scream 1 from 1996. Obviously I have a DVD that has like the first three in there, but Scream has been my favourite movie ever for as long as I can remember. I don't think the first place has ever changed with what is my favourite movie. After a series of mysterious deaths, an offbeat group of friends get caught up in a lively mix of thrills and chills, with hot stars Drew Barrymore, Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich. It says on the back that the smash hit that transformed the horror genre into a phenomenon. Scream also launched the careers of some of today's biggest stars, has one of my favourite actors of all time, Matt Lillard, in it, and it is perfect. It is directed by Wes Craven, who also did the likes of A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills Have Eyes, People Under the Stairs, Last House on the Left. He did so much in his time, and Scream was made in the mid-90s when slasher was sort of going a little bit stale, with the amount of slasher that we got in the 80s, and this was a comedic nod to the slasher genre from the 80s and 70s. I love that Ghostface can be any regular person. The voice by Roger L. Jackson is iconic, and yeah, this is my favourite movie of all time. So that was my top 10. I hope you liked it, and I would love to hear about your top 10 down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.